just join us, torch that hopefully will all be out tomorrow, so you can share this information. But in our special, we have Dr. Zuhdi Jasser. Zuhdi is a dear friend of mine. I've known him for, I don't even know, 20 years probably. I think I was at CNN when I first met him. He is a primary care physician. He used to be a lieutenant commander in the U.S. Navy, physician to Congress and the Supreme Court justices. He is also the founder of the American Islamic Forum for Democracy and the Muslim Reform Movement. Reason why I like him so much is this guy has paid, and his family have paid, such a heavy price because he's a Muslim. But he says there's a big difference between a Muslim and an Islamist. And he is trying to reform Islam. Imagine being that guy. He is also now running for Congress. I fully support him. He is running for Arizona's 4th district. It's a swing district. You can find, more about him at Z4AZ, the number 4AZ.com. Zuhdi, thanks for coming on.
Oh, anytime, Glenn. It's great to be with you. Thanks for talking about this. It's the most important discussion in the 21st century.
So I'm going to push back hard on you because I really want to have an honest discussion about this. You said in the special there is a difference, and I wasn't sure. Honestly, at the beginning of the special, I wasn't sure that I fully agreed with that. I thought I did, but I didn't fully agree with it. I wasn't married to it until I heard some other things in the special, and then I think I'm there. But I want to play pushback and devil's advocate, because in the special you said there is a difference between Muslims and an Islamist. One is political, and one is religious, I guess?
Yes, and this is a construct, as you know, as somebody who believes there's some deep need for reform in Islam, and we haven't gone through the anti-theocratic movement yet. You can't admit as a Muslim that you need reform unless you realize that the general consensus, the leadership, the establishment of the faith has a cancer in it, and that is theocracy. So you can call it political Islam, theocratic Islam, Sharia supremacism. All those things are the same thing. And is it the predominant Islam? Absolutely. There's no doubt that normative Islam, as you played an audio earlier, most of the imams, 95% of the imams globally are problematic. They are evil as far as their concept of humanity, of human rights. Their values are incompatible with America, with the West, and no different than our founding fathers that fought against theocracy. I, as a Muslim, have a moonshot. I have a sense that this is where I think we can go. I believe in liberty. I believe in that first liberty. But even after our founding fathers fought for a revolution, it took them 13 years until they had a legal document and that they agreed upon and recognized that first liberty as being religious liberty. So as an American and as a Muslim, I say, you know what? We have to recognize that there's a table. We're not going to rename the religion. The definitions, Islam is the faith. Muslims are those who follow it. The problem is the entire establishment, the leadership, the people that are making money from Islam, the petro-Islamists of Saudi Arabia, of Iran, of Pakistan, the establishment that is dug their heels in the sand for the last 1,000 years. But let's also not have an ahistorical approach to Islam, like any other faith, and say, listen, if the recipe was wrong, the first 300-400 years would not have been an era of enlightenment on the planet in which the Greek philosophers and so many philosophers are translated into Arabic and other languages while the West was still grappling with the Dark Ages, if the recipe was wrong. But it went from 4,000 schools of Sharia to essentially 4, and you had basically now for 1,000 years. This is why what's happening in Iran is so amazing. If you don't separate Islamism from Muslims and a possibility of reform, who are the people in Iran, the people on the street that reject theocracy? Are they in a vacuum? Do they not have a faith? Are we going to disenfranchise them from their relationship with God? And I want to end this comment with what you and I, we've become such good friends, and I can tell you that as you met my wife, you met my kids, My kids are God-fearing, moral, sentient human beings who have a strong relationship with morality. They aren't morally inverted like all these satanic, cultish, death cult folks of the Islamists. They would die for their fellow Americans regardless of their faith. They believe in God and fast and pray. And who are they praying to? It must be a faith that has some type of moral compass. And if we say that's not a faith and we don't even want to call it Islam, we recognize that we're a minority report within that faith. But we also we can't leave, I recognize that the seats at the table are empty, that the majority of Muslims are silent, and we have given them a pass. No, don't give them a pass. Put fire under their feet. Tell them that they're like the silent Nazis in Germany, silent Germans under Nazi Germany. Yes, tell them that. Get them awakened. But don't deprive them and disenfranchise them of their relationship with God and the faith of Islam.
That was something that we did in World War II. I said I was someplace speaking, and it just kind of came out of my mouth, and I thought, well, that's going to cause some problems. But let me repeat it now to a bigger audience. When we went into Germany, we knew who the enemy was. And we knew who the Germans were that were good, because not all Germans were Nazis, but the ones that were good were the ones that were like, the Nazis are over there. Get those guys. Help us. We knew, because the good guys would self-identify and help. The bad guys didn't. You get to a point to where this is going to get so bad if we can't have logical conversations, if we can't just be shouted down every time we try to have this conversation. It's going to get to the point, Zuhdi, where everybody's just going to assume that every Muslim is bad. And in the special that I saw, one of the things that really convinced me, or helped convince me, was the number of Muslims that, when the Muslim Brotherhood and others were taking over and buying all of the American mosques, most people don't even know this happened, buying all of these mosques and taking them over, it was the American Muslim that were standing up, reaching out to our government and everybody else, going, help, 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 help. We're being taken over by really bad people. And they were, and we didn't do anything. And now what do you do? If you're in that community, now how do you speak out?
Exactly, and that we have to recognize that America really has the answer, and that Europe, you can almost put a fork in it, because their version of democracy is a racial version in which, for example, one of the founding scholars of the concept of Islamism that understands it was Bassam Tibi, a German scholar. He retired in America because he said, I lived in Germany for 40 years, and I never felt German because they didn't have a culture of absorbing folks of all different, origins, ethnic origins, that could then become American or become German. So he retired in America. He said Americanism, as that anti-theocratic religious liberty, is the only way to create a strategy against political Islam, against these viral movements. So let's look at the threat. 1.8 billion Muslims globally. 30 to 40% are dyed-in-the-wool Islamists, which is 500 to 600 million people. So that's a massive movement. So yes, people who say that Islam is a problem are right. There's not that much daylight between them and me. But the issue is, what is our strategy? As a West, to save the West, we have to have a strategy of an offense. And the head of the spear of that offense, I'm not alone. The people of Iran are more on the offense than me, because I've been protected by a country that has gone through this revolution. And by the way, the woke, the bigotry of low expectations, all of that needs to go away, because it's giving Muslims a pass in America, so they do become more passive and sort of let the Iranians fight the battle against Islamism, when in fact it's coming here to our shores. So we have to fight it here in this laboratory, that we can do it better than anywhere on the planet against theocracy.
Zuhdi, I want to push back on something you said a minute ago. So give me 60 seconds. We're back with Dr. Zuhdi Jasser. He is running for U.S. House. That's not why he's on. He's a dear friend of mine and one of the bravest people that I know. And he is running for, the 4th district in Arizona, which is a swing district. You can find out about him at z4az.com. but I want to push back on something you said, and we'll do that in 60 seconds. First, time for you to take back your life from the pain that has been keeping you down. And you know who you are. You know how long this has been going on. You've tried to work around it. You tried to push through it. You ignore it when you can, manage it when you can't. And if you're being honest, it's been calling the shots more often than you like, but it doesn't have to. Relief Factor is a daily drug-free supplement that was designed to help reduce or eliminate your pain by addressing the inflammation that is in your body, which is often the root of not only our pain, but a lot of our disease as well. Here's what really matters. Over 1 million people have tried Relief Factor. 2/3 of them go on to try it or take it day after day, month after month. That's real people who've decided they're done letting pain run their lives. If you've been listening to me talk about Relief Factor for a while, maybe this is your moment. You got a good shot, 70% chance of it actually changing your life. Get the enhanced formula right now, brand new formula, 3-week quick start, $19.95 at relieffactor.com, $19.95, relieffactor.com, 1-800-4RELIEF. 10 seconds, station ID. So, Zuhdi, I want to talk to you here, and we're going to have a short period of time here, and then we'll open it up after the next commercial break. But I want to talk to you about, how do you separate, because politics is it is a system of laws, just kind of like the Mosaic laws were at the beginning with Judaism, and still are in some ways, some of those things in the Old Testament. But more importantly, you said 90% of the mosques or the imams at the mosque, 90% of them are radicalized. If I said that 90% of the priests in the Catholic Church were radicalized, I would have a hard time then saying I trust Catholics. Because, if you're going to that and that priest is radicalized, how do I trust that you're not either radical or slowly being radicalized yourself? We would warn against those Catholics. Why is this different?
Absolutely. It's not necessarily different, and you're not wrong. The problem, as in a very Trumpian way, the problem is the establishment. We are fighting. We need to fight against the establishment. Nobody who's making money from Islam should be trusted, whether it's governmental folks, petro-Islamists, academicians, whatever it might be. But in order to get back that control of our faith and who defines it, we need legitimacy. We need some religious legitimacy. And I'm not making ideas up. There are many academicians.
Okay, wait. I want to stop you. I want to get into religious legitimacy, because I think I understand what you're saying, but I want you to clarify that when we come back in just a second. Unless your dog gets to sit there and look at a menu and pick out what's for dinner every night, let's be honest, it's not happening. Everything that goes into his body is pretty much on you. And I know you take that seriously because you want him to be happy. You want him to be healthy, and you want him or her to know what he is eating. You want to know that it's actually doing him some good. The problem is a lot of dog food loses much of its nutrition during the processing. It's just like feeding your kids a really overly processed food that could sit on the shelf for 2 years and not go bad. You would never feed that to your kids every single day, 3 meals a day. That's what we do with our dogs. We just feed them this ultra high processed stuff that has all of the nutrients, everything, all the live stuff that their body needs. All of it is cooked out at very high temperatures. This is a supplement that you sprinkle right on top of your dog's food. It's designed to add back in all of the natural stuff, the minerals, the probiotics, antioxidants, and everything that will help your dog be healthy. It's Rough Greens. They're offering a free Jumpstart trial bag. You just cover shipping. Use the discount code BECK. Claim your free Jumpstart trial bag now. Rough Greens, RUFFgreens.com. Roughgreens.com, promo code BECK.
Torch is over the target, and despite the cyber attacks, we won't be silenced. If you want to stand with us and for truth, join our insider community today at glennbeck.com/torch.
So I have been warning of this apocalyptic kind of Islamism that is cancer to the West since 1999. I think I was the first person on radio in 99, at least, to say Osama bin Laden, what he believes, there will be blood, body, and buildings in the streets of New York. I was in New York on WABC saying this, within the next decade, and it'll have his name on it. And nobody believed. Nobody wanted to believe. Nobody wanted to pay attention to what's really going on. And this is a really difficult question because we want to stick by our principles of freedom of religion. Although I will stand against Satanism every day as an American citizen. I'm sorry. No, because it's Satan. It's a cancer. And a lot of people will say, including me, that the way Islam is being practiced is absolutely, I mean, the Shia 12ers that are running around, that's Satanism. I mean, it is just a death cult. Now, I think, and this is, I want to bring Zuhdi Jasser back in on this. Zuhdi, when you say we have to have religious legitimacy, are you saying that you're looking for, or you're trying to start a kind of a Martin Luther thing? Because he didn't give up Christianity. He gave up the way Christianity was being interpreted by a church. Is that what you're saying when you're talking about you have to have religious legitimacy for the Muslims that are, don't want to live like this?
Absolutely, and every faith has its own historical arc of reformation and modernization, and what that would include. As you mentioned, Catholicism. The first hundreds of years of Catholicism, the church prevented the laity from even reading the scripture in Latin, and ultimately that was reformed and moved forward towards modernity until America was formed. So, as a Muslim, that spiritual legitimacy, I as a spiritual human being, it's interesting, the Islamists will publish things about me nationally and globally, but locally here in Arizona, they have a tough time doing it because I'm known in the community not only as a primary care doc, but as a medical ethicist who teaches an ethics program in the largest, teaching institution here in Phoenix, and have established credibility as a moral, ethical human being. And many people see that, know me as a man of faith, and that provides religious legitimacy. And then I say, you know what? On top of that, I don't deny the fact that we also have to debate the ideas. I don't get my ideas from my own vacuum. I've read scholars like Abdullah Naim, Abdul Karim Saroush, a Persian scholar that talks about liberty in Islam, Ashmawi from Egypt, Fatima Marnisi from Morocco, who talks about Islam and democracy. I formed coalitions. I'm not alone. We've not only formed the Muslim Reform Movement, and Ezra Nomani, Rahil Raza, you've interviewed many times.
Yeah.
And then our coalition of people like Yasmin Mohammed and others. So it's not a movement by myself. It's a larger movement. But I also reject terms like Islamophobia. We want people to recognize that Islam doesn't have rights. It's an idea. Muslims do. But Islam, they use the term Islamophobia because they want to shut down free speech. They want to shut down criticism and call that blasphemy, and ultimately prevent us Muslims from owning our own faith and having legitimacy. I used to debate imams all across the country, and then they realized they were losing miserably when they had a lay person who's not an imam but yet understands the faith and the Quran and the scripture, debate them. They tried to demonize me and target me and actually use passages that recognized assassination and other things, and we just hunkered down and continued to debate them, and now they realize they're trying to stay away from me rather than deal with me.
So Zuhdi, is this kind of like, I was a cafeteria Catholic. I would pick and choose. Can you actually hold to the Quran? Because there's a lot of stuff in it, like, there's a lot of stuff in the Old Testament that, you don't hold to anymore. But can you hold to the Quran and be, not crazy, not violent? Because there's a lot of stuff in the Quran that there's been no reformation. That's what you're trying to bring about. There's been no reformation. So it's all kind of enforced, as you say, by like 90% of the imams.
That's the most important question do the Zuhdi Jassers of the world sort of make up their fantasy faith, or is it rooted in a new interpretation of the same scripture? We as Muslims only call Quran what's in Arabic, not the English translation everybody's reading on the internet, 99% of those translations are Saudi Wahhabi radical or Khomeinist Iranian type theocratic radical.
Wow.
My father translated the Quran. You can find it on Amazon. It's a modern translation that really helped me be the non-radicalized pro-American Muslim that would only die for America and never die for jihad. There are passages in there. You can separate what's in the Quran from what's historical versus what's for all times. The Prophet wore three hats. One is as messenger, one is as the head of a military, and the other as the head of state. We have to say that time in which the leader of a faith, like Abraham or Moses, was the head of a military or state, is done. We no longer need a religious state. We need to have, just like we have modernization in medical and computer science, we need to recognize modernization in political science, which the best system in the planet is the American system. And if God wanted to tell us how to run government, he would have said so in the Quran, and there's nothing in the Quran about that. Yes, there's a lot of laws, but to me as a Muslim, when we raised our kids, all the laws in there are between God and a human being. So I need to live in a laboratory where I can decide not to drink because God tells me not to drink. He needs to know that I made that decision volitionally, sentiently as a human being, not because I was forced by the theocrats or coerced. So you can recognize that those laws apply to me personally, and, all the child marriage stuff, etc., that I don't believe is in the Quran. It's not recognized specifically. It's all from hadith, most of that, which is sayings of the Prophet that 90% of which is garbage. We need to say was made up and not part of Islam. But the Quran, it's hard to say anyone's a Muslim unless they recognize the Arabic of the Quran. But the interpretation, the translation is human. It's not from God, and that's what we need to debate.
So when you say you don't believe it's in the Quran, you know the Quran. It is either there or it's not. What do you mean by I don't believe it's there?
Well, for example, the passage that says, do not take Jews and Christians as friends. The word friends that's there is not friends. So there's also passages that allow Muslims to intermarry between Christianity and with Muslims and Christians and Jews. So if intermarriage is allowed, which is the holiest institution in our faith, how could it also say don't take them as friends? Well, the Saudi Wahhabis intentionally put friends there in order to demonize and perpetuate anti-Semitic tropes. So that is not friends, it's awliya, which has to do with legal scholars. So just as in Catholicism, it talks about godparents. You would not want a non-Catholic to be the godparent to your child. Similarly, in Islam, there are passages that refer to specific, familial legal things that relate to Islamic family laws, but rather not related to demonizing or saying that we have the only pathway to heaven. No, there are many passages that do not say that actually enforce the fact that Christians and Jews also will go to heaven, and it's not simply exclusive for Muslims.
Zuhdi, how does the average person know? I mean, we are seeing really dangerous stuff in our streets. We are seeing, we're seeing our towns, Dearborn, Michigan. It's like going to the Middle East. I mean, that's not good. That's not good. How do you know who, especially in a religion where they say they are permitted to lie as long as they're lying for Islam? How do you know what's true and what's not? How do you trust?
Well, I think as in any relationship, many people, I'm sure every one of your listeners not only has friends and relationships that they have personally in their communities, their neighborhoods, their doctors. I was very close to Charlie Kirk, God bless him, and have known the family for a long time. And Charlie, before he passed, was in Europe speaking actually quite a bit about the threat of Islam and what it was bringing to the West and the challenge it was for Westernism and Americanism. And yet he, as much as he and I might have disagreed about some of the Islamic interpretations, he recognized that he trusted me with his life. And similarly, I think many people out there should look at Muslims that they know and start to ask them, challenge them, treat them with equality and respect to say, you know what, I respect you to the point that I'm not just going to do interfaith based on kumbaya and what we share, but what are the differences? What happens if you became a majority here? That's how you test if a Muslim is here to conquest because, and also their character, their integrity. They will, these people that lie to seek evangelical Islam infiltration and conquest to the West, as you so rightly said, they're going to manipulate that in any opportunity they have. So you can tell when people are lying, just like politicians, you can tell when they're speaking up and making things up. And I've been consistent on this for 20, 30 years, my entire life. You remember in 2008, you said I was the radical, right? And you're still right. You're still right. The mainstream Islam are the conquest folks that are coming here to destroy the West. They see the world divided into the world of Islam, where Muslims are a majority, and the world of war, the land of war. We are in the land of war here, where Muslims are a minority. We need an offense. All I'm telling your listeners is that offense strategically needs to empower to use Muslims that are on our side, on Americanism, as the head of that spear, because then we will have a seat at that table, just like now the IRGC is being destroyed. When our military operations stop, a peaceful Middle East means the rising up of a post-monarchy, post-theocracy Iran, which will be hopefully begin to share our values, and that's the best anti-nuclear program. That's the best end of forever wars that we could ever have, is allowing that nascent, organic, anti-theocratic movement to rise up, and then allow them to start debating them. Because there's a lot of scholars that I've studied and we need to talk about is, don't give us a pass. I can talk about what are the roots, the academic foundational roots of the Islam that I believe in that is compatible, and we have argued and done apologetics for in the 21st century to begin to broaden that foundation of what is Islam and what is not.
Zuhdi, you rightly reminded me what I said about you, that you are the radical in Islam. This is radicalized Islam, what Zuhdi is talking about. I not only would have your back because I've known you for so long and I've watched you for so long, but I know you'd have my back, and I would gladly fight battles with you side by side. The one thing that I would like you just to share, the threats that you get, this is how I know Zuhdi is on the right side. The threats that you and your family have gone through, because, when you say things like, hey, 90% of the imams are radical, they don't like that. What does this cost you?
Well, the cost, I have to tell you, pales in comparison to the comfort of freedom that my family lives in here. My parents escaped Assad's Syria, and my family that's still remaining there was dodging chemical weapons on one side with ISIS on the other, and I'm living in the comfort of home in Arizona. And yes, there are imams here that spoke out and said we have enemies within that pretend to be Muslim and basically declared me an apostate and cited Quranic scripture in which it says, the enemies of Islam need to be killed. That's their interpretation of that. There have been websites in Syria during the revolution that had web pages that talk about my family as the Zionist, part of the Zionist conspiracy. And my kids, when they were younger, had to have joint counterterrorism force people making sure that they were safe in their schools here because we didn't know where the threats were coming from. And then there's the social ostracization. In my book, A Battle for the Soul of Islam, one of the chapters I talk about is tribalism. You can't reform a faith that is based in collectivism and tribalism and shuns people who fight the norm, who critically think, who challenge authority and speak truth to power. That's the tribalism, the pathology that happens. And my wife has suffered from that as she gets pushed away. It was amazing. I was leading the national conversation for 2 decades about the evil of the Assad regime. And finally, the revolution comes to an end, and I say thanks to Israel, because Israel did the final acts that caused the end of the Assad regime. And they celebrated the end of the Assad regime locally. And the Syrian community that used to thank me for my courage for speaking out against Assad said that, well, your family can come, but Zuhdi can't come. And my wife's like, what? That makes no sense. So this is the type of ostracization and tribalism that happens and doesn't recognize the truth of what we're fighting and what their allies within the community and within this country and Israel and all of those who believe in freedom have been fighting for so long.
Zuhdi, thank you so much. I'm out of time up against the network break, but thank you for joining me. Thank you for the fight that we've been in together for a very long time. Thank you for your courage. If you want to find out more about him, you can go to Z4AZ, the number 4AZ.com. Zuhdi Jasser, doctor. Thank you. All right, let me tell you about